Good evening, everyone. We are going to call tonight's meeting to order. We're going to start tonight's meeting with an approval of the agenda. Can I have a motion from council, please? Councillor McIntosh and Councillor Stevens, all in favor? And that's carried unanimously. Any disclosures of direct or indirect pecuniary interest? Seeing none. We had no closed session today, so we will start with the singing of our national anthem, and I would ask that you rise if you're able.
O Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all of us command. With glowing hearts we see thee rise, the true north strong and free. From far and wide, O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God keep our land glorious and free. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
We would like to acknowledge the treaty lands and territory of the Williams Treaty Nations and the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. We also recognize that Dufferin County is the traditional territory of the Wendat and the Haudenosaunee and is home to many Indigenous people today. Tonight's meeting is being aired on public television and or streamed live and may be taped for later public broadcast or webcast. Your name is part of the public record and will be included in the minutes of tonight's meeting. Any member of the public who is connecting via telephone is reminded to press *6 to mute and unmute. Please remain muted until the chair requests comments or questions from the public. Before I turn the chair over to Deputy Mayor Taylor to run the public portion of the meeting, I just wanted to make a few comments about the process tonight. First of all, it's so great to see so many people here representing tonight. It's really wonderful to see. There is a few chairs, I believe, left in the atrium if anybody would be more comfortable having a seat. I also think it's really important tonight to note that tonight is an exercise of information gathering. So despite what was reported in one of the local papers this week, there will be no vote on the development tonight. You will likely notice that council is quiet and not making any big statements in favor of or opposing the proposal. The public meeting process is part of the planning process because public consultation is a really important part of the decision-making process. This is the time that the developer and community get to learn from one another, and council gets to hear feedback from both. So when it comes time for a vote, we are well informed and we'll be ready to make a vote at that time, which will be after a staff report comes back. So if you think we're sitting here like bumps on a log, we probably kind of will be, but that's because we're taking it all in. So we are listening and we are here to do that tonight. Each of you who've registered as delegates tonight are granted 5 minutes to present. In the interest of time, we would ask that you please respect the 5-minute time limit and try not to be repetitive of comments made by your neighbors or other delegates where possible. In addition, with a lot of you here tonight, it is very easy for the gallery to get loud. I will remind everyone that we do have rules for decorum inside council chambers. And while we understand that this is a very passionate issue, we would ask that you refrain from cheering or booing and make everyone feel comfortable here. So with that, I will turn it over to Deputy Mayor Taylor, who will chair through the public meeting portion.
Very good. Thank you, Your Worship. I too would like to, I don't know why that's so loud. Forget. Better there? How was that? Okay. I too would like to thank everyone for being here. This is the Orangeville we all know and love, and this is why it's an important issue, and having town participation is a super important thing. So I will outline the procedure to be followed. I'd like to ask anyone who would like to speak to this matter to call 1-289-801-5774 and enter conference ID 767-913-391#. Callers will be invited to provide their questions or comments following the conclusion of the meeting presentation. Any member of the public connecting via telephone is reminded to press *6 to mute and unmute when called upon. And anyone who wants to be notified of further consideration of this topic to submit their name, phone number, and mailing address and email address to Clerk's Department at orangeville.ca or call 519-941-0440 extension 2276 and reference 11A York Street. Any information collected is a matter of public record. So at this time, I'd like to call on Mark Hitz and Jason Mui of D&H Architects. If you could please come up to the stand and the microphone, gentlemen, and the stage will be yours. Good to see you both. Thank you for being here. Yes, please.
You just turn your mic on there, or Jerry can? Nope. There we go. We got it.
There it is. Okay. Members of council, Madam Mayor, and local residents, appreciate the opportunity to present this development proposal to you. As has already been said, we appreciate the fact that this is an information meeting, and we'll be anxious to hear some of the thoughts of the public and council on this project. I have been a resident and work in Orangeville for coming up on 36 years. It's been a real privilege to live and work here, and so I do appreciate the emotion and the concern that residents have for our beautiful town. And so we just want to present objectively as possible what's being proposed here, and hopefully that will answer a lot of questions and misgiving of the project. So this is just a slide that shows some context for the project. You'll see York Street running east and west on the slide. The red building in the middle of the slide is the existing building, a residence bungalow at 11A York Street. And the two gray units below that are what we're proposing in this development. So the 11A red block will be removed for the purposes of this development at the appropriate time if the project proceeds. It's a large property, about 1 acre, and it does back onto KC Gardens. Some of the these are just images of the local area, the properties that surround 11A. That we're proposing to be developed. You can see the numbering system. I'm not sure how clear you can see that, but each picture is from the center of the property looking to the 4 different corners. Can we get a full screen on that? Okay. So here's a closer view of the site plan. What we're proposing is 2 townhouse blocks with a 7-unit on the west side and 5 units on the east side. It is at the back of the property, 10 feet below the street level. The site does naturally cascade down toward the park. And what we've tried to do is present some images of the street that show both the existing condition and the future condition with the 11A residents removed. In no way are we affecting the streetscape along York Street. Both at the north and the south side will be fully preserved, with the exception of 11A being removed, which is not very visible because it's set back so far from the streetscape itself. The bottom image on this slide shows the how the site actually drops about 10 feet from the street down to the back of the property, and the white residence on the left-hand side of the slide is actually the house at 9, and so their backyard is obviously fully preserved, protected by trees, and is higher has a higher elevation than the units that we're proposing. These are just further images showing both the upper images are the existing context. You can see on the upper left-hand corner the bungalow that's there, the existing 11A residence, and the slide immediately below that with the 11A residence removed, and the view of the park, and just a little bit of the front elevation of the 5-unit townhouse block. And then again, on the right-hand side, it's the same image. You'll see that the lot is kind of very uniquely shaped. It actually wraps around the house at 11. And so we are removing the driveway that's between 11 and 13 and restoring that to a green space. So we're actually exchanging the driveway, the existing driveway location at an alternate location to give access to these townhouses. So there's just another image of the street, kind of before and after. The one below is what you'd see after the development goes in, if approved, and the one on the top is the existing. So we prepared a little video here, as if you are walking east to west along the street, to see what it might look like as a pedestrian walking down the sidewalk, to show that the existing fabric streetscape has been preserved, and these trees are in the right locations and to scale. And oops, it stopped there prematurely. What are we doing here? Oh, you. You maybe restart that, or. So there we are, moving from east to west down the street, and the various houses there and their images. So there's 9 there. There's 11A with the new road put in, the vista to the park, and there's 11 with their driveways, and then 13. So you can see that there's some glimpses of the development that we're proposing in the rear of the property, but in no way are we altering the streetscape that's there, trying to preserve that and the natural character of that. We brought Craig along. He's from SBA. They've written the planning justification report that's been required by the town for this application. And we thought it was important and appropriate to speak to the policies, both at the provincial, the county, and municipal level, that this project would comply with.
Yeah, so my name is Craig from SBA. I'll be speaking to the project from a planning policy perspective. To provide an overview, planning in Ontario is the responsibilities are shared between the province and the municipalities. So the key provincial policy within the province is the provincial policy statement. In relation to this project, it provides clear direction with respect to increasing housing supply, providing a range of housing typologies, and this needs to occur within appropriate locations, that being within, that can be connected to existing services, is able to cater for the additional traffic volumes, close to employment and amenity opportunities, and provides opportunities for active transportation. This is all while being protective of natural heritage values that are important to the province and health and safety. As you filter down to more geographically specific policy documents, you have the Greater Golden Horseshoe Plan. This largely reiterates the position from the provincial policy statement. Filtering down again, you have the County of Dufferin official plan. So this official plan provides some criteria for intensification applications. It largely reiterates what is in the provincial policy statement. It indicates that intensification needs to occur within existing built-up areas, close to existing services, roading transport that can cater for those additional traffic volumes, has sufficient parking, close to amenities and active transportation opportunities, and responds to the character, scale, and streetscape of the surrounding environment. The county official plan again filters down to more geographically specific, being the Orangeville official plan. On top of, in respect to this property, we have the community improvement plan, which again provides more specific policy in relation to this property. One of those policies seeks to encourage and support efforts to redevelop property, and again responds to the the policy of the provincial plans. And then with respect to the zoning bylaw, that is zoning that allows that particular development to be implemented on the ground. So overall, this development seeks to respond to the municipal and the county official plans, which has been directed by the provincial policy.
Thanks, Craig. That concludes our presentation today. We are trying to respect everybody's time who have taken time to come out today. So we are here to answer any questions that might come from the council or from the public.
Very good. Thank you very much, Mr. Hicks. We appreciate that. Okay, so no questions or comments at this time? Yeah, Councillor Andrews, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Taylor. Good evening, Mark, and thank you for being here.
Thank you.
A couple of questions just regarding the visual renderings that you've provided. Number one, I see the units on the east side, 5, but we have not been provided anything on the west side of the 7 units. Secondly, is there a possibility of getting a rendering of what it would look like from Casey Gardens? Because it's not provided. And, you know, again, visually, I have no idea what the impact would be. And the third is it standard to have a sun shade analysis of what the impact would be of any development? Is that something that your firm provides?
It's not something that we do as part of our practice. Some developments require it. It would be there was a long checklist that I'm sure you've seen that the town provides, and we provided a number of studies and reports. That one wasn't specifically requested for this particular project. We just provided the one rendering because the 7-unit plan is exactly the same. It just has 2 more units. We can certainly provide that. And I think there was a comment earlier on in this process of what the view would be like from Casey Gardens. That's a 3D computer model, so we can provide almost any view that you're looking for. And I think that's an appropriate comment and question. We knew that tonight's meeting was residents of the street as opposed to residents of the park per se. So that's why we were trying to focus on the issues that we thought might be of concern today.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hicks. Councillor Andrews, Councillor McIntosh, and Councillor Sherwood will be next.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I guess my question's to Mr. Kochalak. I think it was last council meeting we were here discussing water shortage. I just wondered how building something like this is going to hinder or help, or, you know, have we got the water for this particular place? Thank you.
Mr. Kochalak.
Through yourself, Deputy Mayor Taylor. For a smaller development like this, it wouldn't be an issue for the water capacity. With a lot of it, we were having issues with the summer peak flows, and that's one of the reasons we're looking at trying to control lawn watering. We do have an allocation policy for water, and it's being done over a 3 to 5 year period when we anticipate additional capacity. Being a small development of only 13 units, it shouldn't be an issue to accommodate it as part of the capacity.
Thank you, Mr. Kochalak. Councillor McIntosh, did you have anything further? You're good. Okay. Councillor Sherwood.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. One of the things I wanted to bring to your attention is on the conceptual landscape drawing, and I just heard you speak of that when you were speaking about the current driveway being put back to green space. I see a rendering where it's green space, then I see another rendering where there's a sidewalk. That's significantly different than green space, sidewalks and concrete. Which concept are you proposing?
Well, it's a pedestrian walkway, so the material hasn't been determined there. So we anticipated a path there. That's where the residents will be picking up their mail. At least that's the proposal today. So it's a landscape pathway.
So there is plans for the concrete sidewalk then?
The material hasn't been determined.
Okay.
Good. Something further, Councillor Sherwood?
Yes,
Go
yeah,
ahead.
thank you, Deputy Mayor. I don't know if it's now or at the time of the report that I should ask about. You mentioned about different studies being taken, and I'm sorry, the gentleman that you had speak, what specifically was the report that he?
That was a planning justification report.
Okay, so I'm going to ask, I'm putting on my heritage hat now, and I'm going to ask if a heritage impact assessment study was done.
That was not asked for, no.
So, okay, that will be one of the things I'll be asking for when we get to the staff report, because a heritage impact assessment would provide information to determine if any of the cultural heritage resources may be adversely affected by the proposed development. So thank you very much for clarification.
Thank you, Councillor Sherwood. Any further questions from council members at this time? No? Thank you very much, Mr. Hicks. We'll move on to the next part of our presentation. Hopefully you can stay for the evening. Yeah, that's great. Thank you, sir. Okay, so council, we're moving on to item 6. And where we are here is a request was made by a resident, Mary Jane Gerber, to allow additional time to a maximum of 10 minutes to delegate. Council has to pass a motion to approve this. Thank you. Council has to pass a motion to approve this, and I just wanted to offer my thoughts quickly. We have a busy agenda. There's many people that want to speak to this. My suggestion would be is we don't allow 10 minutes, we keep to 5, but we would have to have a motion from council to do that. Does anybody want to make a motion that we allow this one individual to speak for 10 minutes? No? Okay. Seeing none, your request was denied, so you'll have to stay to your 5-minute portion. So at this time, I will open the floor to the registered delegation. When I call your name, please attend the delegation table to provide your delegation. As a reminder, please state your full name and address prior to providing your delegation. So at this time, I'd like to call on Mr. Oliver, Richard Oliver. Thank you, sir. So if you could take your name and address and then go ahead with your presentations, and you have 5 minutes.
My name is Richard Oliver. My wife, Reverend Maureen McLeod Oliver, and I are residents at 22 York Street, Orangeville. Mayor Post, Deputy Mayor Taylor, and councillors. We landed in Orangeville 9 years ago as refugees from Etobicoke. In the time preceding our departure from there, scarcely a month went by without us receiving a notice from the Committee of Adjustment detailing the request by yet another applicant for a variance in order to renovate their property. In this case, renovation means to rebuild around the one garage wall you have left standing. The amount of construction noise and the number of dump trucks in the neighborhood became unbearable. Just before we left, a notice appeared requesting not 1, not 2, but 12 variances to construct what was obviously a monster house. This was out of scale, out of character, and out of place in amongst a neighborhood that was primarily single-level bungalows. The same is true for the proposed development for 11A York Street. It is out of character and out of place in this historic neighborhood. It is radically different from anything nearby. It goes against several guiding principles laid out in the town's official plan, particularly those dealing with infill and intensification. Is the official plan of the town of Orangeville to be respected, or is it to be continuously amended for every person or developer who has or has assembled a large block of land on which they propose to erect a monstrosity such as that proposed for 11A York? Is council prepared for an increasing tide of these groups requesting more and more amendments to the official plan and the increasing number of delegates in opposition, such as you will hear from here tonight? On the other hand, is council prepared to set its own precedent, uphold its official plan, and reject this application? If we moved into a property that backed onto an open field, we should not be surprised if at some time another street was put through behind us and we might then have a new neighbor or two over our back fence. We feel for our neighbors at 7 York who will now find they have 5 new neighbors overlooking their backyard from the west side. Similarly, for 15 York, who will find they have 7 new neighbors to the east. How are they to have quiet enjoyment of their backyards with such a multitude of new neighbors? 3 stories will cast quite a shadow over the neighboring properties. How is one able to enjoy a backyard or do gardening without sunlight? To us, intensification means that if the property owner wishes, they should be allowed to construct an additional housing unit or two on their property to rent or share with other family members. Indeed, there are multi-generational families living on single properties on York Street. However, intensification does not mean allowing a subdivision to be built in somebody's backyard. Would anyone on council want this kind of backyard development in their neighborhood? I knew that I had found my new home in Orangeville the moment I stepped out of the real estate agent's car. Touring inside only made me more certain. My wife found that the kitchen exactly matched what she had told our agent before we set out. Since then, we have, like many other property owners on York Street, invested thousands in maintenance and restoration. For instance, we have removed the aluminum siding under the eaves to re-expose and restore the 1890s beadboard and the corbels around our house. The aluminum siding was in perfectly acceptable shape, but we felt it did not belong on an 1890s house. As we have learned more about the history of our house and neighborhood, we came to believe that we are not the owners of an old house, but instead have become the temporary custodians of a very large historical artifact. By extension, our belief now covers the entire block known as York Street, from John to Bithia. Any change, particularly one that alters its streetscape or historical context, especially the drastic proposed change for 11A, is unacceptable to us. In order to keep York Street historic, we ask this council to reject this application and any future application for any amendment to the official plan concerning this or similar developments proposed for 11A York Street. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Mr. Oliver, and we greatly appreciate your comments. We appreciate your comments and the fact that you stuck to the 5-minute presentation window. At this time, I'd like to call on Linda Patterson. Ms. Patterson, if you could please approach. Wait. Could we have the fan off? Is that possible? So there's some people are having difficulty hearing. Oh, yeah. So sorry, everyone. There is an issue with the air conditioning, if you haven't figured that out already. A hot topic with a hot room. So there is difficulty hearing up here, and I think already that's made it a lot better. So I think this is a pretty important topic. I'm willing to sweat it out if you are, and hopefully we can do this. So, okay, Ms. Patterson, go ahead.
Good evening. My name is Linda Patterson. My daughter and I have lived at 25 York Street for just over 20 years. Todd Taylor, Lise Post, and members of council. I speak on behalf of the residents of York Street, our neighbors, and our supporters. We object to 11A York Street OPZ 2023-01 and request that you do not pass this request. I will be addressing background and cultural landscape. There is no reason to give you a long description of York Street, 1 block long, with a population living in harmony and benefiting from being at the heart of downtown Orangeville. Households are a mix of multiple decades of ownership and new owners who are welcomed into the mix. The street is made up of 27 single houses, including 2 rental units with 3 units each, which currently supply reasonable rents downtown on a residential street, an Airbnb, and some properties with the possibility of secondary apartments or granny suites in the future. This has already been successfully accomplished by the residents of number 15, who have added multi-generational housing. There is not one York Street resident who did not choose to live here, whether 70 years ago or last year. The street is appreciated by many other residents in town, as well as our growing tourist audience. As homeowners of historic homes, we are trustees of Orangeville's traditional motto, historic charm and dynamic future. We want to be part of the dynamic future, but if not considered carefully, one day there will be no historic charm. We strongly oppose OPZ 2023-01. We believe it is not an appropriate addition to York Street or to the town of Orangeville. We do not believe it is gentle intensification. We will simply state that this is not an appropriate way to infill or to use Orangeville's resources. We are aware of and acknowledge the current need for housing in Orangeville. We and hundreds of other community members who have signed our petition feel strongly that this proposed development is not an answer to this crisis in Orangeville. We acknowledge the benefit of the town in collecting 12 taxes instead of 1, but note that new development comes with considerable cost back to the town in infrastructure and services. A change in an official plan is not to be taken lightly. It is the document which is designed to guide the servicing and growth of our town. It should not be changed and chipped at in bits, such as you have before you. It is meant to provide concise and uniform direction. Different designations for land use in an area can and does cause considerable conflict and erodes the intent of an official plan. Currently, York Street is not considered either a major or minor collector road as designated on Schedule E of the Town of Orangeville official plan. Having stated that, I'm fairly certain that everyone on this council has used York Street, regardless of its designation, as a bypass to Broadway when accessing the west end of town. 11A York Street is an older severance as indicated on the survey, which would never be allowed today. It was severed so that Dr. Dudgeon could look after his disabled mother. Today, we have regulations such as the official plan and bylaws, as well as planning and adjustment committees to manage appropriate use of properties for the good of the whole community. The addition of 12 townhouses for the enrichment of the developer only does not fit this criteria. At a time when it is reported that Orangeville has a water shortage, why have you been requested to approve an official plan change that it would allow 3-bathroom homes in an area where typically there is only 1 or 2? Currently, the town of Orangeville has undertaken but not completed several reports which would affect the decision on this matter. Currently under review is the Town of Orangeville official plan, the Town of Orangeville water plan, and Heritage District review of York Street. Also, Dufferin County has 2 new initiatives to support its mission to foster thriving, equitable, and resilient community, the Older Adult Services Review and the Master Housing Strategy. Also, we note that the applicants have not included an archaeological assessment for a proposed area in one of the oldest industrial sections of the town. Has a comprehensive environmental impact study been completed? Does it include the effect of both noise and light pollution on habitat in Casey Gardens and Mill Creek?
Ms. Patterson, you have 15 seconds.
Okay. We respectfully ask you to consider the facts as well as community support to not accept this application. We are building communities. We are not building communities like York anymore. They are unique and precious. Once they are gone, you cannot get them back. The decision is not reversible. I will end by asking each of you to reflect on the legacy you intend to leave to the town of Orangeville. I respectfully ask you not to vote for this rezoning application tonight, and by doing so, protect the heritage and the cultural integrity of our town. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Ms. Patterson. If I may, we all live here too. It is not my intention to cut people off. It's just simply, it's a math equation. We will be here all night. So we simply must stick to the 5 minutes. It breaks my heart to cut people off over such an important topic. So please, if we could stick to that. And at this time, I'll call forward Mr. Wayne Townsend. If you'd like to come up to the podium, please state your name and your address. And then you have 5 minutes, sir.
And if anybody out there wants to rob York Street, I would suggest this would be the night.
Yeah.
I'm going to talk really fast because I speak for a lot of people behind me. Good evening. My name is Wayne Townsend. Who cares? Members of council, Todd Taylor, Mayor. We object to 11A York Street, and I'm going to talk about the impact to residents. Density. Currently, York Street has 27 houses, adding 12 houses and approximately a 40% increase in homes. Currently, there are 55 residents, adding 33 new residents, which is a 60% increase in population on one street. These are going to have an unknown and negative impact on the community. Premier Ford stated on March 22nd, 24, the general increase in density will preserve neighborhood character and not overtax the existing infrastructure. We feel the proposal may cause an unnecessary strain on York Street's limited but necessary to downtown on-street parking. We know that these people are not all going to park in their own garage, they're going to be on the street. York Street also currently provides overflow parking for Tweedsmuir Church, Canadian Legion downtown events, and of course, Christmas in the Park. Privacy and interference. There are many negative effects to the lifestyle and safety of the residents of York Street. Some strongly impact the use of the existing properties. There'll be significant light pollution in the area, which is now a calming effect in the center of town. We expect a significant increase in noise. Vehicle lighting will shine the front windows of 16 York upstairs as they start up, and then downstairs as they meet the grade. Many residents feel that their feeling of space will be replaced by a feeling of being closed in. Also, adjacent properties are afraid that the diagonal view from their smaller backyards to Casey Gardens will be destroyed. It's not just what you see from the street, it's what you see from the backyards. Number 9 and 11 will have vehicle traffic. 13 and 11 will have pedestrian traffic going within feet of their living space. 11A, with the currently all houses on York Street, with the exception of 11A, have front exposure only to auto and pedestrian traffic. York Street is a walking street, people seeking refuge, all sorts of other reasons, which will be in the report when you get the copy. The drawing suggests a post office super box visible from the street. Not a great addition to a historic landscape. Orange Lawrence was the postmaster, but I think he'd think this was the wrong idea. Let's talk garbage. I was going to try to quote Matthew Mayer, who talks, yes, garbage disposal area would have a significant service to be proposed 12 units without the development having its own private garbage collection. It appears on the drawings to be proposed at the end of the access route between 11 and the next house. There's no dimensions shown. A large garbage can right in the middle of York Street should add significantly to the visual context of our street, and concentration will obviously cause an unpleasant odor, different from the little bins. Perhaps the rats and the raccoons in town will enjoy it, though. Snow removal will be significantly different from the current methods of shovel and snow blowers. It will be earlier, noisier, and due to lack of space, the proposed will have to be removed by larger trucks and equipment. Anything left over is going to go right into Mill Creek. The plan suggests access to the park. We have safety concerns of having private entrances to the park. Additional persons will be able to walk through this development past residences. No other houses on the south side of the street have access to the park, and we just think it's a real issue. There is considerable concern regarding the homes at 7, 9, 11, and 13 with the effects of the building, the roads, and infrastructure will have on their older homes. There'll be lots of heavy equipment as well as vibrations and dirt during the construction period within a few feet of existing homes. How will this affect the delicate balloon frame construction of these homes? How can they live with construction noise? Any large vehicle, such as the moving truck or furniture delivery truck, may be required to back out onto York Street from the new proposed road. In reviewing the applicant's traffic study, we've encountered many questions. We believe it was done at the time of the year of January, and the weather was not noted. It seems to have only been done over the period of 1 day. We did our own traffic study, and it was attached to my report when you get it as attachment A. And to summarize the findings, there's a minimum of 75 to 100 trips per hour will be added to our road. The additional traffic study talked about, we did it for 2 days between 8 a.m. and 4 other times during the day. It'll be attachment B on the attachment on my report. To summarize, between 8 and 7 p.m. At night, York Street on the average has approximately 100 cars per hour as it stands. We also note the absence of report on the water hookup required for the newly renovated street for this additional capacity. At present, our homes have 1/2-inch water hookups, and the proposed homes would have 3/4-inch pipes. How can the applicant supply us with any information how that would affect our water supply and pressure? Commenting on a proposed development in Hamilton of 4-story fourplexes on March 22nd, 2024, Premier Ford stated, residents would lose backyard privacy, have less street parking available, and face traffic congestion. We feel the same applies here.
15 seconds
for time, yeah. So, and this is where I thank you very, very much for your limited time. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Townsend. You got a nice save with the microphone. Thank you for the save with the microphone back there. It was much better. Could I call on Mr. Spencer Finch to come to the front? Mr. Finch, if you want to just come to the microphone and state your name and address, please.
Good evening. My name's Spencer Finch. My full handle is John Spencer Finch. I have resided at 14 York Street for 39 years and a total of 53 years in downtown Orangeville. Your worship, members of council, I speak on behalf of the residents of York Street and neighbors and supporters. A little bit of my personal information I thought was somewhat important. Most of my adult life was spent here in Orangeville working with Dufferin County Children's Aid and the Dufferin County Social Services Administrator. To make Orangeville a continuing good place to live during this time, I did my best, however small, to volunteer in many local charities over the 50+ years to assist in maintaining this excellent place to live and to receive awards for volunteerism. I was not anticipating to be brushed aside in my final days of contributing and living across the road from a new vehicle intersection. I will first be addressing housing seniors versus housing and other demographic. I'm conscious of 5 minutes because I've been here 53 years. That's awful hard. 50 years ago, I was in a post-grad schooling specialized social service and social work with emphasis on aging. At that time, 10% of the population was over 65. Now it's in excess of 20% and rapidly increasing. The downtowns were populated with seniors whose driving car days were limited. This is opposite to family housing downtown. Canada is pushing for affordable housing for families, but does that mean you can shove it anywhere? This is the opposite to family housing downtown. Many of my connections left Orangeville to live in neighboring towns, but this is not their first choice. Nothing was suitable available downtown. The proposed project is not suitable or affordable for seniors. I also be addressing environmental issues and emergency services. KC Gardens. Other delegations review the effects of KC Gardens. The view from the park will be like a wall. KC Gardens is not only a heritage park, but one of the few open and welcoming areas downtown. This change would destroy the feeling of being different time and space. This is Orangeville's only wheelchair accessible wilderness park. It is Orangeville's Central Park, enjoyed by thousands taking exercise or mental health break. A 3-story building will ruin this ambience. The proposed housing is only 30 meters from the center of the Mill Creek. Environmental issues. The additional activity from increased neighbors in these close quarters may result in residents no longer being able to open windows, opting instead to use air conditioning, which consumes energy. The septic pumping system is of considerable concern. Matthew Mayer replied to our question about the size and location of this needed addition and indicated that he cannot determine specific dimensions from the submitted plans. The pump house station will flow in the river if it fails, or in the case of flooding on Mill Creek, it will do the same. The holding tank would probably be placed under the roof, which is a dangerous place to store raw sewage, no matter what precautions are taken. If there's a problem with private road, it would have to be torn up. Imagine Alder Pool filled with sewage sitting underground waiting to be pumped away. The smell from holding tanks increases with heat, so placing the sewage under black pavement doesn't sound like a great idea, and also fencing around the above-ground pumping station is included in the drawings, although required, which would again reduce the space available for use to any residents of the proposed development. If a power failure occurs, the back generator will produce additional noise and pollution. Let's hope that it will continue to work. Additional light pollution cannot be avoided in this proposal. Since the towns of Orangeville 1.3 million rehabilitation Middle Creek project have been noticed significant increase in the wildlife, birds and butterflies. Even the frog peepers have returned after many years. This diversity would be destroyed by the increased activity in the yard areas on the south side of York Street. Part of this restoration was to provide habitat. We are concerned about the obtrusive lighting so close to the creek that will interfere with insect life cycles, which will then reduce bird, bat, and frog supplies. Also, the loss of mature trees and shrub upslope currently absorb runoff and helps filter it before it hits the creek. Gardens on these older lots need to be protected, not an additional melting snow contaminated with salt and ran into the Mill Creek, as well as runoff rain from the back of unsurfaced areas downspouts. Safety. There's no turning space for fire trucks or ambulance. The design is narrow and dead-end street. We're on a 1.5 lane street, not a 2-lane street. traffic zigzags up all the time, and it's relative danger backing out of a driveway for us old buggers. Here to back onto York Street and after a call. Well, moving trucks at any large vehicle have not been provided with adequate space to turn around. There's only one entrance, exit, and can how this be safe? Does this put the town of Orangeville at risk? Is my time up?
15 seconds. Go ahead.
Okay, I'm just about finished. Thanks. We suspect the reason for the huge garbage bin must be located right in this residential street, may be caused by lack of space. And potential crossover from fires in this complex would most certainly pose a risk. And then the next thing is dealing with water. I'll just exclude that, preserve water.
I'm going to
Number that's quite small. I thank you for allowing me to speak tonight, folks. I appreciate it a lot.
I thank you for your passionate speech, sir. Thank you for being here. Okay, if I could call on Mr. Woolner, Richard John Woolner. Very good. If you could state your name and address.
Good evening. My name is Richard John Woolner. I reside at 20 York Street. Your worship, members of council, I speak on behalf of residents of York Street, neighbors, and our supporters. We object to the 11A York Street proposal. I will try and speak as fast as possible because I've learned a lot from the Micro Machine guy in the 80s. The official application report for this project focuses on the current Ontario need for housing. However, solutions in Orangeville need to be made by the town and not by an outside paid consultant. The report focuses on how a proposal fits only the changes to official plan and bylaws are approved. Will it go forward? The cookie cutter report completely focuses on formal language, regulations with no consideration for the residents who presently live there, making it a cold, heartless document to anyone who lives on York Street, present and in the future. There is no regard for the human community. The environmental issues not only include floodplain, not light, air, noise, and loss of habitat. Many of the other successful town developments of the report have cited buildings do not recognize they're either according to the official plan gathering roads or underutilized streets, not experiencing the traffic as downtown with the houses. By passing this proposal, you're opening up the development on one lot instead of assembling several lots. This is an idea where it's been so successful in gathering the support of other areas in town where this type of incorrect development may happen. The report states that visual impact is limited because they're hidden from York Street, but the joy of living on York Street is living on the street. What about views from backyards and Casey Gardens, which has been mentioned before? This plan is in conflict with both the official plan of Orangeville and the Dufferin official plan. We agree and support the letter as presented to delegation by Steve Scott and Rebecca Black-Scott. We agree official plans are in place for sound planning practices and have a spot and having spot exceptions on single properties. Surrounded by different planning causes. Issues such as you are hearing tonight will continue into the future. The York Street neighborhood is unique in its heritage character and is not typical of other residential neighborhoods where intensification is inappropriate. Many people on York Street are on the municipal register. Many of the houses are. They are designated as heritage structures at 7, 11, 16, and 18 York Street are all properties either adjacent or across the street from this subject property are on the municipal register of heritage buildings. This means that the municipality has identified these properties as having cultural or historical significance and importance to the community. Will the town of Orangeville consider increased security necessary for access to new Casey Gardens? With the new access to Casey Gardens, they will need that added security, and perhaps it might increase your insurance cost and security for the town. That also, thank you for the support from the Optimist Group, may cause the end of certain things like Christmas in the Park to happen because if they don't have the security that they require to stop the light bulbs from being destroyed. The eventual cost of the proposed homes will not be considered affordable, and therefore they will not be exempt from the developmental charges. The cost gap between what developmental charges should be charged and what the town will need to service and provide the infrastructure for this good proposal will responsibly be ultimately the taxpayer's responsibility. Could these tax dollars be used for infilling in a more cost-effective area of the town for investment? Aesthetics and design, well, you know, they say that everything is all of different style and character on our street because all the houses were built at different times. That is the case. Even the house that's being proposed to be ripped down is actually a design of a certain time frame as well. There's no space on front lawns for these buildings. There's no common element on York Street. As residents, we have to enjoy the created pleasant gardens and floral beds that we all sort of do for everyone down the street. So we know that people walked on our street to enjoy that. The comment has also been made by the applicant's report. It's Heritage Orangeville as well, that it is not visible from the street. It is like an outhouse. Everyone still knows it's there, even if you can't see it. Well, let's think about what it would be like for someone living in the proposed development with lack of open space, living above a garage, no sidewalks on connection or view on York Street, not connected to the rest of the street. Only open space to play is Casey Gardens. You can overpopulate the park with lots of people. And generally around the pumping station that would be on there as well for the kids to play in. The town of Fort Erie has made a decision to oppose a development proposal along the historic waterfront properties on Erie Road, upheld in the Ontario Land Tribunal. This appeal is something that you guys should really look into if you haven't already seen the report. It's actually the Ontario Land Tribunal stood up for the house, not the housing development, for the community. They said the proposed development was not compatible with the character of the surrounding established residential neighborhood. This traditional neighborhood was outside the development area and was not envisioned for infilling and intensification, and the proposed development did not provide for adequate open space on site. So the town of Fort Erie supported their citizens and actually stopped that development from happening. There are many people who agree that this official land bylaw should not be granted or changed. We have handwritten line of petitions, which I have with me here. So basically, as of noon today, we had 937 persons physically signed and 421 people signed online as well, for a total of 1,358 people up to noon today signing petitions against this proposal. These signatures not only represent York Street's residents, but also former residents, kids who grew up on the street, walkers who use York Street, people who live abroad now that call Orangeville their home base, but still. We have 15 seconds. All right, well, you've seen the signs around town, folks. So as far as Premier Ford stated that it should be left to municipalities to decide where they want to build up a density rather than the province legislating it. He has actually said that on March 22nd, 2024. Now, skipping through, I want to say that the present residents hold great pride and hope in being able to hand this unique street to the next generation of owners. We are, as has been said, stewards. We suggest the residents of York Street are the same stewards, but perhaps we are not as quiet. Thank you. I will leave a copy of this presentation with you for your reference in total, not what I've skipped as well. An electronic copy will be emailed to your clerk this evening.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wilner. Just on that, if I could, we've gotten many presentations sent to us. I read every single one, and I know these people sitting up here, they do the same.
Oh, I know.
Don't feel that you're not being heard, okay?
Yeah.
It's very important.
Oh, I get it. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. So at this time, I'd like to call on Steve Scott. Mr. Scott, if you'd like to come up to the podium, state your name and address, and you'll have 5 minutes.
My name is Steve Scott. I live at 9 York Street. That sounds really loud. Is that really loud? Yeah.
That's good.
Mayor Post, Deputy Mayor Taylor, councillors, I want to take this opportunity to thank you to allow us to address you directly tonight. I did prepare or send in a letter previously. You probably have seen it or it's part of your package tonight. I'm here today with my wife, Rebecca, my 2 kids, Chloe and Acadia. We live at 9 York Street. So the property just abutting 11A on the east side. Sorry, is that gone? We're good? Okay. So what I'd like to talk to, I'm not going to throw the details of the letter that. How do I, is that better?
There you go.
Okay. I don't want to go through, I won't go through all the details that we prepared or submitted in the letter, but I just want to talk to 3 points. And first of all, to confirm that the application as submitted does not conform to either the Dufferin County official plan or the town of Orangeville official plan. Specifically, this proposal represents a overdevelopment of the site. It's incompatible within the context of this low density residential area. And it's incompatible with the heritage or historical nature of the neighborhood. So the applicant is seeking to overdevelop the site at a rate that is 61% greater than what is permitted for this stable neighborhood. I had previously, or in my letter, I had stated 65%. I apologize for that, bad math. Notwithstanding the applicant's claim that 61% is a modest increase, I cannot imagine any scenario where a 61% increase in anything could be considered modest. For instance, I wouldn't recommend council suggest a modest 61% increase in property taxes for 2025. I'm going to think that you'll find that universally our good citizens of Orangeville will think that's not modest. Simply put, this proposal represents an overdevelopment of this site at an extraordinary and inappropriate scale. From an incompatibility perspective, the town of official plan at section D 7.2.1 states new development will be located and organized to fit with its neighbors or planned context. The town official plan at 7.2.4 further states that infill development will respect and reinforce the general physical patterns and character of established neighborhoods, and goes on to state what some of those things are, such as size of lots, dwelling type, style. Further, at section E1.11.4 states, when considering intensification developments, council shall take into consideration a compatibility with adjacent buildings and adjacent residential areas. And there's some other criteria that are itemized in the letter. The applicant goes to some lengths to point out that the proposed development is set back from York Street using various descriptions of the proposal, such as the proposed townhouses are located on a private lane set back from York Street. This provides distance from the street, minimizing the impact on surrounding properties. Another point is the design of the townhouses provide appropriate setbacks, building heights, and landscaping to, quote, minimize the visual impact. So I can only assume this is an out of sight, out of mind type of proposition. I suppose that's the point. At the same time, they state that the proposed development is, quote, seamlessly integrated into the current streetscape and character of the neighborhood, but you can't have it both ways. The proposed development is not reflective of the prevailing building type of the area, is not characteristic of the area. It does not complement the existing area and does not harmoniously integrate into the established character of the area. It also fails to provide for the appropriate transition or design mitigation measures that should be incorporated when proposing intensification infill development. Lastly, from a heritage perspective, the town official plan at section D 4.2 states the goal in relation to heritage resources is to support the retention and recognition of Ontario's built heritage and cultural heritage landscapes in order to build a sense of community identity and a degree of continuity between the past and the present. It's already been mentioned that on York Street, 18 of the homes, or 69%, are noted as having historical significance. So I note that 69% is truly not a modest amount. Over the past several weeks, as York Street residents have interacted with other members of the wider Orangeville community on our street, almost universally the comments we receive have been disbelief about how such a development could take place on York Street. Many have remarked about their enjoyment of using York Street as a regular part of their evening walks around town, and how much they enjoy the neighborhood for its historic nature, its mature trees, and just the general love of the area. There is a sense of heritage which goes beyond bricks and windows and about the general character of a neighborhood. York Street, as well as William, Zina, Bithia, and Wellington Streets, for example, all have this character. It would be a shame for the town to lose any part of this on York or any of the other streets now or in the years to come.
Great, you're out of time.
I'm out of time. Okay. Thank you, Mayor Post, councillors, for your time and diligence. Ultimately, ask my family you reject these proposals. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Scott, to you and your family for being here tonight. I'd like to call on Mary Jane Gerber at this time. And Ms. Gerber, if you could come to the microphone and state your name and address, and then you too will have 5 minutes.
I'm aiming for less. My name is Mary Jane Gerber. I live at 7 York Street, Orangeville. Mayor Post, council members, staff, and everyone else here, I'm going to cherry pick from what I've got written because a lot of what I have here has already been covered. The proposed development I'm opposed to because it doesn't fit. And to be able to fit, it has to bypass the official plan, zoning bylaw, and required setbacks. If approved, it will negatively impact the entire Heritage District, including KC Gardens. So speaking of KC Gardens, studies from all over the world have proven that green space, a specific amount of green space, has an incredible impact on mental health. All around KC Gardens, there is affordable housing for all ages. And I work with a lot of the people that require affordable housing in our town. Stress is high, and KC Gardens provides a free space that meets the green space criteria that has been proven in some cases to be more effective than drugs for people who struggle with mental health and anxiety. Right now, KC Gardens is bracketed by a buffer zone of the large lots on York Street and the railway lands. I would suggest that that should be protected because the most vulnerable citizens of our town rely on that space as a refuge. They don't all have cars. They can't go to a cottage. They can't escape to the country, but they have KC Gardens. It is a gem and a treasure. And this development will have a significant negative impact on it. It will tower over that park. If anything goes wrong in the private infrastructure, it will run directly into the park and the creek. And after spending $1.3 million to rehabilitate Mill Creek, do you really want to put that in jeopardy for 12 residences? Secondly, I am going to speak about our property at 7 York Street. Our property is 33 feet wide, and we are looking at a 30-foot tower, less than the regular backyard setback from our property line. And each townhouse has 3 levels of wall-to-wall large windows. So when I bend over to weed my garden, there is no escape. Anybody who wants to watch can watch. And as a woman, I find that disturbing. So I am requesting that you recognize that this plan is asking you to step back from the principles that we elected you for, that we trusted you to protect the historic charm of Orangeville and plan for the future through following the official plan, following the zoning bylaws, recognizing where development is appropriate and where it isn't. This proposal is asking you to be the council that put KC Gardens at risk and opened up any property in town that has extra land to infill development of this nature, and particularly in the Heritage District of town. It's already beginning on Wellington Street with a property that was just purchased. There will be no turning back. So we're asking you to let those who find peace, refuge, and healing in KC Gardens know that you will protect and steward this crucial green space reserve for them and their children into the future. Send the message that development in sensitive areas must be done sensitively or not at all. The tide is turning on indiscriminate intensification in Orangeville, and there is now space for you to say no.
Thank you very much, Ms. Gerber.
Thank you.
Appreciate that very much.
Thank you.
Okay, if we could have Carrie Shin please come to the podium. Is Carrie here? Just come up to the podium and state your name and address, and then you have 5 minutes.
Okay. This one's it. So I was just passing out what I'm reading in case you want to have a copy of it.
Thank you.
Okay, my name is Carrie Shin. I live at 42 John Street, and I've been there for about 14 years. And I am concerned about overdevelopment and water security.
concerning overdevelopment and water security, the town and the OLT are not adding up the impacts to the town's water supply from these piecemeal density approvals. Wells drying up mean nothing to the Ontario Land Tribunal. I was happy to hear that somebody in Fort Erie managed to get, something preserved for their creeks. Wells drying up means nothing. A single Ontario official makes the decision with no regard for upholding our official plan and town zoning bylaws, or the neighborhood mess, distortion, and approval will create. This is why the town must not even accept this application for further consideration unless it complies with the official plan and current zoning, as the other 33,000 residents understood the rule of law in Orangeville. If council even votes on this, yes or no, this application has hit the jackpot because the OLT is density driven and will approve. They don't care about our wells running out unless we tell them. The more outrageous the application, the better for the seller. They might concede to remove one unit that they know was an over-the-top ask in the first place. This type of variance just causes legal and governance rancor and bureaucracy. Developers will over-apply, aiming for some unknown compromise with no regard for the existing official plan and its long-standing benefits. The unknown compromise that could result in an equally bad result at the Ontario Land Tribunal, for example, encourages speculation with no regard or confidence in existing neighbors to not be targeted next. I was at the Land Tribunal, and honestly, we had fought something near our house twice, and it still went through. So I'm very concerned about this. There are many deep lots that traditionally back onto Mill Creek. This application will set a dangerous precedent if it proceeds. The orientation of the proposed new development removes the backyard setback that goes to the creek. And from what I saw in the drawings, it appears as though they are creating a tableland and will have to excavate an enormous amount of land in order to put in this pumping station and additional sewage that is not a good idea going into the creek. All we need is one dry, hot summer when the West Water Tower is out of service for 2 or 3 years, while needed maintenance and repair is done. And we will have missed our opportunity to plan and avoid full-out water shortages and harm to our town and its economy. We need to stop approving more people taking water at this time. If we can't defend or look after the system we have now with this water tower that needs to be repaired, we are in an emergency situation. We can't maintain our own water supply. This isn't something that I or anybody else would want to deal with. Little Billy wants water in the tub, like you have to have ice for skating rinks. You have to have pools full of water for the swim team. You need water every minute of your life. And I'm concerned about that. Send this back to the landowner and require that their proposal meets the regulations of our official plan and current residential secondary density R2 zoning without paving over what is left of open space, which needs protection for recharging depleted wells. Call a water emergency if you have to, that will allow the town to stop new homes from being sold without a reliable water supply for them. I looked at the checklist in consideration of a declaration of emergency, and this is a guide for councillors. And under this act, in the general and government section, it asks, does this situation pose a threat to the provision of essential services, energy, potable water, sewage treatment, etc.? We would qualify for this if we cannot maintain our water supply. The public often view the declaration, this is a note that they have, that this is of emergency as a decisive action towards addressing a crisis. It must be made clear that an emergency is a legal declaration and does not indicate that the municipality has lost control. An emergency declaration provides an opportunity to highlight action being taken under your emergency response. Currently, hardly anybody even knows about the lawn watering restrictions, or the public should be conserving water due to the situation where water scarcity does not allow us to take the West Tower out of service, or the well system repairs that we need.
Thank you very much, Ms. Shin.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. Okay, at this time, I'd like to call on Ted Gerber. Mr. Gerber, if you could come up and state your name and address. Good to see you.
Good evening. My name is Ted Gerber. I live at 7 York Street. I've been amicable neighbors with the people at 11A for 37 years. I respect the work of Dickinson and Hicks Architects, but I am opposed to this proposed townhouse development. You've all received a letter I sent a few days ago, and I believe you've all read it. So I'm just going to touch on a few things that diverge a little bit to save time. My opinion is that this proposed development is just too much. It's too high, too long, too wide, too deep, too many. 3-story townhouses don't fit the existing character or look and feel of the neighborhood. There are other buildings on the street that are 3 stories high, but they're single-family homes. So go to 60 or 68 First Street where they're building 3-story townhouses. Take the front row of 7 units, pick it up, drop it into the backyard at 11A York Street. Take the row behind that that's 5 units, pick it up, drop it into the east side of that yard, and you'll get a sense of what that will look like. We've seen the streetscapes, which are really well done, but unlike the townhouses on Town Line, or the ones out by Riddell Road, or the proposed ones at 16th and Broadway, these back onto an important place where tens of thousands of people go every year. And the Optimist Club says 24,000 people attend Christmas in the Park every December. That's a huge number of people who will see this, all right? I don't think it fits the character. I'm in favor of gentle intensification. New homes are great, they benefit us, but it needs to be handled with utmost care. So the next point relates to that. Decisions that are being made, you're being asked to amend zoning bylaws, change the official plan, and even with setbacks that aren't even standard. We have in 2 weeks, almost 1,400 people sign a petition in opposition. How many people live on York Street? 97% of the people who have signed this petition don't live on York Street. Why? Because they're concerned about other areas in the town as well. If you make a decision to change the official plan to allow this, then everything else, it's a precedent. Everything else is opened up. People will not buy into their neighborhoods if they do not believe their neighborhoods will be preserved. We entrust our leaders politically, municipally, to ensure that we can buy into our neighborhoods, renovate, add on. Millions of dollars is spent every year in the downtown core adding on and renovating homes. I did a quick survey of 22 homes on 8 streets in the last 3 years that has spent, I know on York Street, $3 million has been spent in the last 2 years alone. That's a subset of our economy that would be threatened. Why would someone spend money on renovations and additions if 2 doors down, a neighbor who happens to have a large lot might put up something that they don't want to live by anymore? Okay? So moving on from that, there's a disproportionate opposition. I currently count 337 homes that have been approved by council for development, townhouses and single homes, not condominiums or apartments. I also count around 30 neighboring adjacent properties that are directly affected, either by sharing the property line. There are 5 that share with these 11 units. It's 12 units, but only 11 new homes. Or their view is obstructed, or they share close proximity in terms of travel on the street. So you have 337 homes that have been approved. Around 30 will be negatively affected. So it's like, we know you're going to be upset. We know it's increased traffic, increased noise, less privacy, but we're going to build new homes, right? And for every one of you that's being put out, we're going to build 10 new homes. That's a good thing. That's a good ratio, 10 to 1. It's unfortunate for the one, but it's 10 to 1. Here we have 11 new homes, and I count 30 homes directly negatively impacted. That's a ratio of 0.3 to 1. Flip it around, 10 to 1 in favor of the other developments in town, and 30 to 1 against this development. That's a significant proportionate opposition. The last thing I'll say because I'm really dry in the mouth right now, is that a lot has been made about the provincial government and the role that they have. I've been told by people who know more than me that there's a change happening in the last 6 to 9 months. The official proposed official plan draft, provincial planning document 2024 section 2.2 says that additional housing in communities is to be specifically targeting development of underutilized commercial and industrial sites such as shopping malls and plazas. There are other locations in Orangeville that provide more effective and reasonable targets for intensification. Master Mechanic, Blackout Nightclub, 60 Broadway, the Leaders Complex, and maybe someday the lands behind the Orangeville Mall for starters. 11A York is not an appropriate place for intensification.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gerber. Appreciate that.
Okay, thank you for your time.
Okay, I call on Karen Jones at this time. Ms. Jones, are you able to come to the microphone? State your name and address.
Karen Jones, 23 York Street.
Welcome.
Good evening, Deputy Mayor Todd Taylor and Mayor Post, members of council, staff, and gallery. I awake every morning and I am thankful for what I have. We have all witnessed how in the blink of an eye our lives may change. I have lived in apartments. I've lived in bedsits and hostels sharing facilities. I've couch surfed at friends for a time, and I have lived in an abusive environment. In each of these circumstances, I needed an out, whether it was a historical street in the UK to walk along, a nearby woods or meadow, or a city park. I needed that space to catch a break, be alone, get recharged. In downtown Orangeville, we have limited areas to recharge. York Street combined with KC Gardens provides this. Many who visit York Street do not have the means or the capability to seek space further afield. The proposed development at 11A has a private road bisecting our one-block street, leading to an almost completely paved area. When I walked to number 9 York Street's small backyard last week, you see the vistas of the beautiful old trees and KC Garden beyond, but something else, a slight breeze not noticeable from the sidewalk and a temperature drop. Number 9, as other properties on York Street, will be surrounded by a sidewalk, road, parking spaces, pumping station, and a wall of townhouses. All major trees removed and replaced basically with concrete. It does not provide affordable housing and it segregates from the community. That private road leading to 12 townhouses is a safety hazard for our pedestrians. Mainly, I wish to address planning department's heritage considerations in its revised report, INS 2024-026, presented on tonight's agenda. The report states 2 properties individually designated, 17 listed non-designated, and 8 properties non-status. 4 of these non-status properties are actually included in the Merchant and Prince of Wales HCD study of 2018 of having significant attributes. Today, these would have status. Number 14, English Vernacular Cottage. Number 25, Dutch Colonial Revival. Number 23, Edwardian. And number 9, Arts and Crafts, recently restored and one of the finest examples in Orangeville. The numbers change now. 23 properties, with 2 of them having designation. Almost the entire street is of heritage status. But here's the catch, right? York Street property owners seemingly don't want individual status, but the majority would like their street designated a heritage district. The property owners let council know this in 2018, revisited again on November 27th, 2023, again at council on May 13th, 2024, and yet again a large turnout last week on June the 12th, 2024. The majority of property owners on York Street want HCD, and it would give council increased governance over developers' demands. Here we are today. In historical neighborhoods, we need professional help with guidelines and bylaws to be established for appropriate development in these historically sensitive areas. We cannot treat our official plan like a pizza pie. I leave you with this message. A few days ago, a young woman was walking on York Street. I was outside and she stopped and asked me what all the signs were about. I explained. She was recent to Orangeville and perhaps Canada and walks on York Street often. She lifted her hands to her eyes and said, "The green. My eyes feel peace. My eyes feel peace." I request this message be passed to the clerk for public record, and I also request notification of the planning department's final report prior to it proceeding to council for a decision. And of course, I oppose the development.
Thank you very much, Ms.
Thank you, Mayor Post, Deputy Mayor Taylor, members of council, staff, for allowing me to talk.
Okay, thank you to everyone who spoke tonight. If you would like, you can send your written portions. If you didn't send it in already, still send it in to the clerk. That will be sent out to council and it'll be a matter of the public record. So please feel free to do that, and we'll make sure that that's included in this. So at this time, I'd like to invite any questions from the public regarding the matter. Any member of the public connecting via telephone is reminded to press *6 and mute and unmute. Jerry, is there anyone on the line? There's no one on the line. We're going to go. Is there anybody else that would like to speak this evening? Come forward. Please state your name and address. Yeah, and just so you know, you weren't a delegation, so you don't have 5 minutes. You have 3 minutes.
That's fine. I'll be really quick. My name is Noel Ramsey. I live at 15 Feed Street in Orangeville. Love the town. We moved from Toronto, and one of the things was just the charm of the place. Really, we live on the other side of town, but we walk our dog on York Street all the time. It's a lovely spot to go through. A lady mentioned earlier, and I have a question. It's actually, she mentioned earlier that you shouldn't allow this to go or make a decision to allow this to go to a point where it can be appealed at the Ontario Land Tribunal. And I don't know if that's the case, whether you're already at that point, whether if you decline it, like refuse the proposal. Can you refuse the proposal before a vote?
Mr. Ward, where are you? Mr. Ward, would you like to speak to the process?
Sure, through you, Deputy Mayor. So when an application is submitted, there are appeal rights that an applicant has. If the town refuses to accept an application, even though the developer believes they've provided all the information that the town requires to review that application and are not accepting it, the developer can appeal that non-acceptance of the application. If it's accepted and we take a certain period of time that extends beyond what the Planning Act says, the decision should be made within, developer can appeal that non-decision, to the Ontario Land Tribunal.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Ward. Thank you, Mr. Ramsey.
Okay, so the question is, or the statement I'd like to make is, I hope that staff, after hearing everything that's been said this evening from the residents that live on York Street as well as around town, we'll be able to put together a business case for you to review that can really capture the feeling of what's going on here. I just want to, I'm on the town's website, and it's interesting that the first thing that people see when they come to this town is a large sign, no matter which direction you're coming in, it says, "Historic Charm, Dynamic Future." In the town of Orangeville, we celebrate our history and build on a strong community spirit. You couldn't see much more of a huge community spirit that you've seen tonight. Whether it's other older houses around town or just like the downtown Broadway, it's just a lovely place to walk. And you've got a lot of people participating, building the spirit.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ramsey. Appreciate your comments tonight.
Thank you.
Would anyone else like to speak from the gallery? Mr. Garisto. Please state your name and address. You have 3 minutes.
All right. And I'll stand up anyway. It's better. Anyway, my name is.
Can you pull your mic up just a little bit, please? Thank you, sir.
Okay, my name is Nick Garisto. I don't live on the court that's been discussed tonight. But as a resident of this town and a businessman in this town for 56 years, I see a lot of changes in this town. And there is a place where changes can be made, but I do not believe that York Street is the place there for this kind of development. So I want to pass this on to council. The other issue that you're going to be facing, I guess Mr. Ward was right when he said, if you guys deny the approval, of course, the proponents, they have the right to take to the tribunal. But you have an advantage with the tribunal. And I'll tell you the advantage you have. It's because you're facing, from what I understand, some shortage of water. You just passed a bylaw that you only allowed water once a week in the lawns. So there is 2 questions that come from the tribunal, and I go in from the Ontario Municipal Board first. The 2 questions was, does the town has enough water supply to support this development? Does the town, second, it's got enough sewage?
That's what I answered, Mr. Garisto.
Yeah, it's got enough sewage.
What's your second question, sir? You're running out of time.
To support it. So that's what I'm asking you, that you have an advantage if you deny this request by stating those opinion that you don't have enough water supply to support it. Even so that Mr. Koshilek stated, yeah, well, it's a small development. We can do it. Of course, the next guy is going to say, mine, it's a small development too. So you're going to proceed with this? So I leave you with this. You have the right to deny this request.
Thank you very much. Okay. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak at this time? Please come forward. State your name and address.
My name is Garen Godet and I reside at 28 York Street. I just wanted to speak just briefly further about the water issue. I know some of the issues have been discussed here tonight, and I wanted to just maybe ask Mr. Kosiolek a follow-up question. I did see in the paper that you said, and you have said it here tonight, that this doesn't really represent much of a change with respect to steady state water supply, and really the issue is more with peak summer demand. The wells, the 4 wells that provide over 60% of our water are the first, second, third, and fifth oldest in the town. And even one of them is actually in your report from May 13th, stating that it is on the verge of failure. So my question is, through Mayor Post, to you, what if these wells fail? Are we going to be looking at not just watering our lawn once a week, but drinking water issues? I mean, we have a serious issue here. Peak summer demand is an issue now if all of our infrastructure continues to operate as it is now.
Mr. Kosiolek?
Through you, Deputy Mayor Taylor. Right now, we're doing a lot of work trying to gain capacity in the wells. So one of the ones we talked about, well 6, we're looking at getting a consultant in to re-drill the well. It might not happen till next year to be able to gain capacity, but we have a number of items going forward with that. And I guess if catastrophic failure happened and 2 or 3 of the wells went out, we'd have to look at more strict restrictions similar to what they did in Calgary. If you have significant infrastructure failure, there would be more significant restrictions.
Good. Okay, thank you. I just would add then that it seems there seems to be a greater than acceptable risk on the downside in terms of the ages of our wells. I mean, fingers crossed the infrastructure keeps functioning the way we want it to. We don't want to have a situation here in Orangeville like they're experiencing in Calgary right now. And I would just recommend to council that these developments, small or large, need to really be considered against this water issue. Thank you very much for your time.
Mr. Smith, did you want to comment on that?
Yes,
I don't think the applause was for you, sir.
So thanks for the question. And what's occurring to me is we need to bring back a report on the water supply. There is a lot of misinformation that has been cut and parsed in different vehicles in different forms on the water supply. The water reduction is geared towards peak singular days. You know, that's where the challenge is. It's not the constant water supply of day-to-day use. We have capacity. We have allocated water for a number of developments. We have more capacity than that. We do have some other developments coming. So I don't think stopping development is something that's in the cards. And I'm not speaking specifically about this one. I'm just speaking generally because a number of people have used that. We're not in a position where we need to consider stopping development. The watering of your lawns happens 2 or 3 days a year or very short periods of time. It's not the ongoing use that's a problem. So we'll bring some more information back to council so it's clear in the community. I don't want anyone to think that we should be stopping development now based on water supply.
Very good. Thank you very much, Mr. Smith.
Can I just respond to that briefly?
Sure.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. My understanding of peak versus steady state is that you have a buffer. And so my concern is that we're robbing from that buffer. And yes, we may have current peak issues right now, but if we keep adding to that steady state and using more of our supply, then that buffer shrinks.
Yeah, I'll just comment. We'll bring a report back with facts and examples and good descriptions of what we have and where, so it's clear to the community and to all of us the state of our water. But to suggest again that we should be stopping development at this time based on water supply is not something that we're near to.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Mr. Lee. Thank you. And if I may, I just wanted to make one clarification. People in our town, as soon as there's something that they disagree with, you know, council gets told what idiots they are and, you know, it's a clown show and what's going on. And staff is thrown under the bus as well. This is not driven by council or by town staff. This is driven by a developer who's come to the town and now we're going through a process. But we have nothing to do with it other than the fact that we're the body. It's going to make a decision upon whether or not we want this to be here. And it could very well be one of you that's sitting here and people be wondering, what did you do? But this group has done nothing other than listen. So I just wanted to make that very clear. Anyone else who would like to speak? Yes, please.
So thank you for letting me speak. I will be short. Thank you for having us tonight. I guess my question is, I'm not an engineer. I'm actually a real estate broker from Toronto with 17 years full-time experience. I work with builders, I work with architects, I support development, I support housing for young people and affordable housing. But it strikes me that in terms of what you just commented on, Mr. Mayor, about what can we do, I know that in Toronto, historic trees have protections. There's minimum frontages for developments. The setbacks, you know, it's very difficult. I sold several units in a development that was canceled due to a mature tree canopy. And I just find that here, our trees in the backyard have no rights, which is odd because they are definitely part of the historic charm. And it strikes me as concerning if our water tower cannot be shut down for repairs due to water issues. I'm not sure how that's okay or what we can do to better protect the town, but I saw a lot of the maps. of the new subdivisions planned. A lot of them are on sensitive well areas, land by a creek. In Toronto, you cannot fill in and cut away ravine property. You have to only build from a setback from that land. So if I'm working with a buyer and they want to redevelop it, I'm not prospecting ravines. So this seems very backwards with where we want to go with preserving the charm, preserving the land. I think we can win, and we're all very brilliant and can find creative ways to make better developments. I see a lot of new commercial sprawl that's all one level up sea line. I'm like, why are there not condos on top of that? You know, we're doing backwards things. Like you said, this came about backwards. It wasn't that the town said, yes, let's do this. This is the plan. But we have these systems where you can apply and you can chip from the back door and circumvent the bylaws, the master plan, is it called? So this is very concerning for me because I know that precedents are a real thing. And what kind of precedent does this set to put 12 townhomes in one backyard with only really a 40-foot frontage? And that entire frontage is now becoming a private road. And my heart goes out. I was doing some land registry research, and the woman who lives on the property where this road will go, and someone made a point about you architects may know more about all the heavy vehicles, the emergency vehicles. What about her mental health? Even my mother has been up all night, and she's elderly and she's a cancer survivor. This is bad for her stress. It could cause her cancer to come back. I'm worried for the elderly people on the street, and the woman who lives in that home. She turned 84 years old yesterday, I believe. She's not here right now. I don't know her, but I'm concerned for her because all this construction and literally, if this is her window, this is the fire truck. Where's all the garbage going? Where's this mailbox going? What does this pumping station look like? Anyway, it seems crazy. I don't know how it got this far, but please help stop this from happening.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak? If there's no one else, we'll go to you, Noel. Okay, Noel, did you want to have the last word? Mr. Ramsey, excuse me.
And Noel Ramsey, you have my address. Mr. Deputy, you said that these developers bring forth cases and you have no control over them.
I didn't say we didn't have any control. I said that we didn't start the fire is what I'm getting at. This is brought to us.
Yeah, I didn't want to misrepresent, sorry. There is a lot of control that you do have on council because, I mean, you can always turn these things down. The question I've got is there was reference to you could put together a water report because based on some previous minutes from meetings going back a few years ago, it was estimated that each house consumes 174 cubic meters of, it's either meters or feet, sorry, of water per year. So we're looking at 13 units, 13 units, you're looking at 2,000 cubic feet, I think. Along First Street, there's like 42 homes that were put in the last few years, and right beside it, there's another 42 homes that have just been built, and they're not occupied yet. So that water supply is going to be stressed by those ones. Could this report potentially be put together to show how the water supply has been impacted by the development over the last 3 or 4 years up till present?
Yeah, Mr. Ramsey, the planner and the engineers will all have the reports in when it comes to council, and it's a few months out, so we'll all see it at that time. And staff will do a great job on bringing that forward. So I know
I'd like to see what each development, the ones on First Street, the ones out on Broadway by Sea Line, the ones on Center Street, the ones that are proposed on Broadway downtown, this development. Like,
Mr. Koslak, did you want to provide your expertise on that question?
Yeah, through you, Deputy Mayor Taylor. We have a water allocation policy we've drafted. We'll be bringing it to council probably in about 2 months, as you mentioned. With that, we've accounted for all the developments that are on the books for draft plan, going through planning applications, and also the ones in construction. So they've all been allocated, and there's still additional capacity, but we'll outline it more when we bring forward that report.
Very good. Thank you, sir.
Because I'd like to see those steps, how they build up, because we're now running out of water where we have to restrict it to 1 day a week. I'm willing to pay more for water. I know a lot of people aren't, but I pay a lot for my landscaping and I really have a lot of pride with my property. And it really bothers me when they start telling me when I can water 1 day a week. So I'd like to see how we got into this situation and what the impact of this new development would be before it gets approved.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Ramsey. Okay, at this time, I will call on council and ask if there's, oh, is there somebody else? Okay, please come forward. I didn't see you there. Mayor Post saved you.
Yeah, I know. Thank you, Mayor Post. Deputy Mayor, I just got some really good news.
Can you,
And I want to
can you
share
pull down the mic there a little bit? Yeah,
I just got some really good news and I'd like to share it.
sure.
There's a wonderful heritage planner out there that I met. Unfortunately, she's full-time employed. And she just told me that Bill 200 got passed today. So I want to share with my neighbors on York Street and any who's here from Wellington or anywhere else, there is an extension until 2027 for the non-registered houses on the list, or non-designated ones on the registry. Did you know that? You did? Oh, I didn't. Well, they didn't.
Very good. Thank you very much. Okay, I'm gonna one more little scan here. We look like we're good. So council, I'm gonna look left. How about we just go down this way? Rick, did you want to, no? Okay, very good. Councillor Sherwood, please.
Yes, thank you. Deputy Mayor.
Yes.
At this point, I'm going to go back to my original comment about a heritage impact assessment study. A property doesn't have to be designated or on the heritage register to be subject to a heritage impact assessment. This is a public meeting, so I can't put forward a motion. Am I correct? I can't put forward a motion for a heritage impact assessment study. This is just a recommendation.
This is just a public meeting you would do that in. Madam Clerk, did you want to speak to?
Thank you. Through you, Deputy Mayor Taylor, to Councillor Sherwood. This is a public information meeting for the purposes of providing information to the public. Certainly, it is council's purview if they wish to put forward a motion. I mean, you are within your realms of procedure. However, it may be recommended to wait till the fulsome report is prepared by staff and brought forward at that time to recommend the heritage impact assessment.
So I'm very adamant. I'm very passionate about that a heritage impact assessment study be included. It's very important that it take in not just York Street, but John Street and the historical landmark of Casey Gardens and the Mill Creek. So I think that it's very, very important that the heritage impact assessment study be done to provide information to determine if any cultural heritage resources may adversely impact this development. So again, I'm turning to the experts here. Can this be taken away as?
I was going to call on Mr. Ward. Did you want to speak to it, Mr. Smith? No?
Sure, thank you, Deputy Mayor. Through you, we can take this back if this is council's interest to see this study undertaken by the applicant. We didn't ask for one with the application, and the reason is because the policy framework that exists speaks to looking at heritage features through a heritage impact assessment when the affected property is a heritage feature or if it's adjacent to a designated property. This development doesn't fit either of those criteria. And notwithstanding, having said that, when you look at the separation of this development from the surrounding properties, it didn't present a close proximity that would generate that sort of consideration. So that's some of the background as to why we didn't ask for a heritage impact study. There's other matters that look at compatibility in terms of the planning report. The applicant had an urban design study undertaken as well to look at the design and its relationship with its surroundings. So all of those studies were submitted to look at compatibility. So having said that, if that's an interest, we can take that back.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Ward.
So,
Councillor Sherwood?
Yeah, Deputy Taylor. So again, I go back to my original comment. The property doesn't have to be designated or on the listed register to have to ask for a heritage impact assessment. So that's something I would really like to push for and hope that I can get the support of my colleagues here. I think you all know that it's clear that one of the items here is the historical characteristic of that neighborhood, and especially our historical landmarks of Mill Creek and Casey Gardens. So I will ask that I put forward that motion. I am going to maybe go a little bit above there, and I hope that I could get a seconder and that everybody could agree with me on this.
Councillor McIntosh, you wanted to second it. Mr. Smith, you wanted to speak to this item? No, you didn't? Okay.
I was just going to say, if the councillor wants it as a motion, then you're welcome to do that. I heard the manager say he would take it back. Either is fine, but if you'd prefer to be on record for something like that, then you're welcome to do that.
Prefer to be on record if could be.
Okay.
And if
You have a seconder. Any other comments from council at this time? Councillor Prendergast?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, through you.
You're going to speak to this item though, right?
Yeah, I am. I agree with having a heritage assessment, but I don't think it goes far enough. I think we also need an environmental impact assessment, which I would like to see added to the motion.
So is that a friendly amendment that you'd be willing to make, Councillor Sherwood?
Absolutely. I was looking in this one lens, Councillor Prendergast, and I appreciate that that to be added on as well.
Madam Clerk, you good with that?
Yes, if any members of council would like me to clarify the motion, I'd be happy to do so.
Councillor McIntosh, are you still okay seconding that? Okay. Any other further commentary? No? Seeing none? All in favor? Okay, that carries. Councillor Sherwood, I'm just going to work this way, so you still have the floor. Go ahead.
If I may, thank you
Yeah.
very much. I just wanted to ask staff for a clarification. In the zoning bylaw, a private driveway, I believe, is if the frontage of the property is 40 feet, or should I be using meters? Let's say 40 feet. A driveway is allowed 6 feet. And the proposed is wider than that. That makes this no longer a private driveway. This now makes it a roadway.
Are you asking?
And so what I'm saying is, are they asking for some type of relief or extension regarding the zoning bylaw to make it no longer a private driveway, but now a roadway?
Mr. Mayor, did you want to speak to that?
Sure, through you, Deputy Mayor. I guess I can characterize the question of how, what sort of permissions there might be granted here for the driveway. It's not a residential driveway per se, because it's providing access to a private development. In that respect, it has to meet code requirements and our access standards. We want it to be a suitable width to accommodate appropriate vehicle maneuvering in and out of the property without potential conflicts. And it also has to meet the minimum code requirement for fire and emergency vehicles, which is 6 meters.
Very good. Councillor Sherwood, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor McIntosh?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Just a comment. 6 years ago, if the council of the day had dealt with this situation, I really don't think we'd be sitting here today. So I think this council will make a decision, and that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Mayor Post, out of respect, I'm going to skip you and you'll speak last. Okay. Councillor Andrews.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Taylor. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to this matter. I want to thank D&H Architects for the renderings. As I did request, I would like to see some additional renderings to give a further perspective, especially from the KC Gardens section, also a western view of the 7 units. The one thing that had been mentioned by Mr. Hicks is the absence, and I know that through Mr. Ward in the past, we've had some requests for a sun shade analysis. And this is based on the height, the topography. If that is possible to be provided, that would also be incredibly helpful. Lastly, I want to thank the input from everyone here this evening. This is what this process is all about. It gives us an opportunity to listen and learn, and this is what this evening has been about. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Andrews. Councillor Prendergast.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, through you. I just wanted to thank everyone for coming out this evening, your diligent efforts with the petition, your signs. That's what an engaged citizenry looks like. And thank you for taking your part and really just being proud of Orangeville and trying to stand up for something that you feel very strongly about. It is much noted. Also, in addition to that, for bringing some new points that perhaps those of us that aren't residents wouldn't consider. For example, Casey Gardens and how it creates an equity access to green space, which is something I'd never thought of. So thank you for bringing up that point. In addition to that, just heavy traffic construction and the impact that could maybe have on some of these century-old homes, things that maybe we would not have thought of. So just thank you for bringing up a lot of points, and you've given us a lot to consider. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Prendergast. I too just would like to thank everyone. Honestly, as you sit here in these council seats, sometimes you wonder if, is this microphone on? Is anybody listening? If a tree fell, would anybody even know? The very fact that this room is full tonight is heartwarming for all of us. People care. People care about their town. They care about their neighborhood. And I think that's an excellent thing. So thank you everyone for being here. And I hope you all felt heard. And at that point, I will turn it to you, Mayor Post, for your commentary.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor, and you did a very good job chairing that part. I know it's difficult to have to cut people off at 5 minutes. So with that, I do want to also extend my gratitude for all of you being here and for keeping to the time limit and for ensuring that you covered very different perspectives about it. I think that was really great. It does speak volumes when our council chambers is full, and you're welcome to come to all meetings, not just when we're talking about York Street. You can come all the time. We love the public input. I've said before, and I'll say again, council makes the best decisions when we have a good blend of expert recommendations from our great staff as well as community input. And I know that going forward with this, we are going to have the best of both. So I feel like we've got a lot of community input, and I know that our staff will do an excellent job of providing a recommendation and capturing all the comments that we've heard today. I don't have any questions. I think I've had everything answered from others. So I'll turn it back to you.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Mayor Post. So Council, we are on item 10, and that is that report INS 2024-026, 11A York Street, public meeting information, OPZ 2023-01 be received for information. Can I have a motion for that? Councillor Andrews, Councillor Stevens, any questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor? Yes, that passes unanimously. Thank you. And then a motion that correspondence items 8.1.13 to 8.125 be received. Can I have a motion for that as well? Councillor Andrews, Councillor Prendergast, any questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor? Yes. Thank you very much, everyone. And at this time, I'll turn the chair back over to Mayor Post.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. I get the easy part where we just go into bylaws and adjournment. So I will take a motion that the bylaw listed below be read 3 times and finally passed, which is the confirming bylaw for the proceeding of the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Orangeville at the public meeting held today. Can I have a motion, please? Councillor Andrews and Deputy Mayor, all in favor? And that's carried unanimously. And finally, a motion to adjourn. Councillor McIntosh, seconded by Councillor Stevens, all in favor? And that is carried unanimously. Thank you all for being here.